world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Welcome to No Question About That. I'm Ed with Dominic today. How's it going?
Very good, thank you, Ed. How are you?
Doing all right. Yeah. Looking forward to tomorrow's semi-final.
Looking forward to is always a stretch, isn't it? But yeah, I think we should have confidence going into this one for sure.
Well, we're not talking about that one today, but Bilbao jumped on their plane without the Williams brothers or Sunset. I still don't believe it.
Some sort of subterfuge going on.
Yeah, exactly. If the Italians tell you it's pasta, look under the sauce, was Ferguson's rather xenophobic quote. Something like that. We'll see whether it's actually true or whether they're trying to trick us. Anyway, today we're going to talk about United's position on wingbacks, which is kind of interesting because we have quite a few players in theory, but I would argue none without their flaws. So I think we're going to dig into this and think about whether we're going to strengthen in that position or not. I'm going to guess not. How are you feeling about things at the moment?
I think if you'd asked me this question before the January window and asked most United fans this question, it would be a resounding yes, we have to strengthen in this position.
Yeah.
It just seemed like there were basically maybe one player, and that is a push in making Diogo Dalot that one player who was a fit at wing-back in Amorim's system. But that's the way it seemed to be before they arrived at Dorgu. Obviously that signing and how much he's not a perfect player, but how much he fits into the system with his physicality, the ground that he covers, and how natural a fit he is a left wing-back. That plus the emergence of Harry Amas, the return of Luke Shaw, and I think that also the performances of Noussair Mazraoui as a right wing back. I know some people don't like him there, but I actually do like him there. I think he's just a top footballer. I want to see him in the team wherever that may be. But all of those things put together put us in a really interesting and different position, whereby you could sort of see a situation where they don't strengthen at wing back this summer. Which, yeah, I do think they're more urgent positions to be strengthened, right?
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that one. Yeah, I mean, the one player you didn't mention in that list was Diallo, of course, who has played a few games at wing-back under Amorim. Depends on how attacking exactly we want to be. I think it's a little bit of a myth that he always played attacking players in those positions at Sporting. That wasn't really true. He played a range of defenders through to attackers. I think everyone looks at Quenda and goes, look, left-footed, extremely attacking wing-back, but it wasn't always that case. And so we've got a good range of balance. I think the argument I'd have, if yours is the ball case, that we're pretty strong there and other areas we need to strengthen first, which I agree with. I think the more negative case is like how flawed all the players are. And even, I would say, Mazraoui, who is a brilliant footballer, just extremely intelligent, was excellent away at an athletic club, really excellent, probably his best performance at wing-back. The question there is always the kind of physicality. It was one thing when you're facing a 30-something-year-old fullback, although he did have Nico Williams, who is, of course, a very good footballer to deal with. It's another thing in the Premier League, like trying to occupy effectively two positions, which is what you'll do at wing-back. So I think that's my question there. Dallo, my question is, what does he actually deliver in an attacking sense? I mean, he plays a lot of football. His availability has been amazing. It's maybe the contributing factor to why he's now injured, just how much football he's played over the last few seasons. But his actual numbers he puts up in terms of chances created, assists, goals, and the kind of attacking metrics you might want from a wing-back are quite low, I would say. So it's permanent 7 out of 10 performances, but rarely goes above that. And then obviously Dorgu and Amas are extremely raw and young, and we've seen that with Dorgu. His passing is not very, let's say, he's not very tidy, right? He's definitely got some improvement to make in terms of his ball playing, even his delivery from wide areas. And Harry Amas, beautiful footballer, extremely mature, struggled a little bit with Brentford's physicality at the weekend, I'd say. So that's the kind of more negative case. A lot of players, lots of options. Any of them absolutely perfect yet? Probably not.
No, but expecting perfection at this stage at Manchester United is a massive ask, and Bruno Fernandes doesn't even offer that, and he's by far away the best player. So, is there something there to work with in all those players that we've just named? I think there is in all of them, and I'd even extend that to Luke Shaw as a left wing back. Some may say physically that's too big an ask for him. I say that his delivery from that position is better than any of those other players.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
If that can be utilised, then it should be. Him dovetailing with an inside left forward, him on the overlap, cutting it back. We've seen it already in a couple of cameo performances since he came back. It's got to be a weapon. And then Dorgu, he's not technically perfect, but if you think about the situation before Dorgu arrived, we had Diogo Dalot in that position on the left, which nobody liked and nobody enjoyed because he had to cut inside. It basically cut off one half of the pitch. It was like watching England in the Euros last summer where Kieran Trippier was doing exactly the same thing. Mm-hmm. It felt like a complete carbon copy of that. An ode Southgate, if you will, from United. And then the other side was basically Mazraoui or nobody. So it was two defensive players in those two positions. And the situation's now changed quite a lot, I think. And I know what you say about Harry Amas and physicality, but he was asked to play away. I think his 2 starts in the league have been away at Brentford and Newcastle.
Yeah.
So there's 2 more physical tests you aren't going to find, really. And I'll still be quite impressed by what he's done, even amongst that. So there's lots to be positive about. And then the wild card name we haven't thrown into this mix is Bendito Mantato.
Yep.
Who I think is 17, plays a lot on the wing rather than wing back, but has played at full back. Obviously, he's incredibly raw, even behind Amas in terms of his development, but is talked about in academy circles. And I've seen him in fleeting videos. Let's be honest, but I've heard good things for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him play a few times for the academy, and I do think there's a lot of raw talent there. They don't play a 3-4-3, generally speaking, the academy. So translation from academy football to the first team and to a different system and a different position, I think we should be realistic about his likely involvement in the team, and a loan may be more sensible given the number of options we have for next season. But we'll see. I mean, we know that Amorim likes to have young players in the first team squad, even if he doesn't introduce them straight away. He's had quite a lot of them around the first team squad, including quite a number of the under-18 side, the under-academy side. Actually, sometimes fewer of the Premier League 2 sides, which might tell you exactly where the quality is at the moment in the age group teams. I want to come back to Shaw a little bit because you mentioned him. I mean, look, if he was fit all the time, you could kind of trust his body to not break down. He's the perfect player there. I mean, he's genuinely still one of the world's best left backs, right? And I'm not being hyperbolic. There are almost no weaknesses to his game now, like the stupid defensive mistakes, although he did make one at the weekend, I would say. But he takes a while to come back from injury. That's always been the case. He's needed 6 or 7 games before he's looked not rusty. But I would say if you could trust his body, then of course it'd be perfect because he knows how to do the attacking stuff and he's got the pace and the defensive nous and all of that kind of stuff. Just there's no evidence of the last 10 years that tells me that he will play a full season without getting injured. In fact, the one time he really did that, and he was actually brilliant in Ten Hag's first season, he then missed 18 months through injury after that, right? His body said, and we didn't have him anymore. So the idea that he can play maybe some games there, quite a lot of games at wide centre-back, left centre-back, feels like a good role for him in the squad next season, given that I guess we'd expect Dorgu and sometimes Am has to play a lot of games there too. It feels like a good balance, and it could have a connection, especially since we won't have Martinez back until January or so, unless they send him off to Dr. Fuentes or Dave Brailsford gets out his pouches again, as they seem to have done with Amad Diallo, who made an absolutely miraculous recovery. It was brilliant.
He has done that before, Amad, though. I think he has come back from injury earlier than scheduled before. The interesting thing about players in Amarin's system is that he does seem to like the ones that can play in two positions. And wingback is almost always one of those. You mentioned before that it's two positions in one, but it's also a place where you get versatile players. So you get Amad, who can play as a 10 or as a right wingback. Dorgu could probably play as a right 10, maybe cutting inside. You've got Noussair Mazraoui, who could play wide centre back or wingback. And that's not going to stop. I don't think Amarin's going to be pigeonholing people into roles. And I think he sees that as a strength of players. Bruno playing as a 10 and a centre mid. I think that's going to continue. And even if United did sign someone for a wing-back position, I think it may be someone who could play either realistically as a wide centre-back or a 10. I'd be very surprised if it was an uber specialist, if you like, wing-back. Because hypothetically, who is that player? And would it be a right-sided player or a left-sided player? Which side do you think United are weaker on? It's a tricky one.
Yeah, I think it is the one position in Amarim's system that feels a bit more specialist. But we had Omar Barada saying earlier this year, when they were doing all the interviews around the stadium announcement, that they're buying players who can play more than one system. Like, that's not to say they haven't got faith in Amarim and what he's doing. I don't think there are any hints about that, although if you lose half your games at Manchester United, you probably should be under significant amounts of pressure. But just that sensible squad building, isn't it? I mean, what if Amarim does brilliantly, United decides to fuck off to Real Madrid in 2 years' time, and the next guy doesn't play 3-4-3, and we have a whole bunch of players that can only play in that system, we're going to have to spend another £500 million to revamp the squad. So they're looking for players who can play in more than one position. And Dorgu is that, right? You can stick him at left back in a flat back four. Yeah.
Or on the right wing, maybe in a 4-3-3 or 4-4-2. But no club does this anymore. United got hamstrung by backing Ten Hag so much that they only were getting people who'd play for Ajax or who'd represented Holland. And that was so far off what you should be doing as your transfer strategy that it was completely laughable. We all bought into it, or a lot of the United fans bought into it because it was backing the manager. And the idea of backing the manager is quite appealing to United fans. It's the culture at United. And rightly so, we're doing the same with Amarim. But you don't have to just sign people who play in 3-4-3. I know people are getting quite excited because Mateus Cunha plays in a 3-4-3 at Wolves, or Liam Delap's played at the spearhead of a 3-4-3 for Ipswich. But it doesn't have to be the case. You sign good footballers who could play in multiple positions and who are assets for the future. It doesn't sound like rocket science. Yeah. The amount of times we've been here with United where we've just bought people for a manager. I mean, Mourinho buying the Giants for 2 years and then Solskjaer getting rid of them all. It's a cycle that's repeated itself for United so much.
Exactly. And we really do have to move away from that. So, I mean, you asked who would be the one, right? So if you were picking an archetypal right wing back, it would be like Denzel Dumfries, right? Who was brilliant for Inter over the last few legs against Barcelona, but you couldn't play him in a flat back four. I mean, it's absolutely mental to do that. In fact, the way that Inter positionally rotate, he's almost more of a wide forward than he is a wing back anyway. And they play a different system.
I can't believe Ten Hag didn't sign Denzel Dumfries, Dutch right back like that. I mean, it's Denzel Dumfries on the right, and who is it on the left? I mean, obviously we've signed Dorgu, but I guess it'd be a Nori, somebody like that would be high up the list.
I guess so, and he's had a good season at Wolves, and he's a talented player and all of that. So you'd be looking at, I mean, there aren't a lot of wing-backs in world football, right? So you tend to, in those systems, you convert a winger, as Inter have done, on the left side, or you have an attacking fullback who can convert into that role. But I don't know of any academy side, for example, in the Premier League. I I'm not watching Borussia Dortmund's academy every week or anything like that. But I don't know any of them regularly play with a back three and wing-backs in a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3. I mean, it's just not how players are being developed at the moment. I mean, players tend to there's this complaint that they get overcoached. There's some truth to that because like there is a kind of template and a blueprint for producing players, and some of the flexibility appears to have gone out. But I don't think anyone's getting coached to play wing-back these days. They're looking at players who've got multifunctional skills. Then I guess, I mean, if we're thinking about how this role develops next season, we're also thinking about what our transfer strategy is overall, right? And we are stocked in certain areas. I mean, it feels like we have quite a lot of players for that role at the moment. 6, if you include Mantato. We've got quite a lot of central defenders, even if, when Johnny Evans and Victor Lindelof leave, because we have, obviously, Martinez come back in January, Maguire and De Ligt, Mazraoui, Shaw, Aiden Heaven, Kukoni made a few squads last season. Yoro. We haven't even mentioned Diego Leon, who's coming in, another left-sided.
And he'll probably be earmarked for wing-back more than left-sided
for
3,
sure.
given his profile. Yeah, there's a lot of options.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
You walk in tired and hungry. One bad dinner away from losing it. You don't like to cook. You don't want more takeout. You just want something good. That's why there's Dish by Blue Apron. Pre-made meals with at least 20 grams of protein and no artificial flavors or colors. From fridge to fork in 5 minutes or less. Keep the flavor. Ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
So where's the money going? Money's going on forwards. Cunha, a central striker, be absolute. I mean, there should be riots in the street if they don't buy a striker. And I presume another central midfielder, given that Eriksen will be out of contract and we will need 1, maybe 2, depending on what happens with Casemiro if the Saudis come sniffing again. So, and a goalkeeper. I mean, it seems like all the smoke signals saying that they're going to look to move Onana on. It shouldn't actually be that hard. I mean, he was expensive, but 2 years on, PSR position is around 30 million or so, maybe a bit less. They'd take a small impairment. So it can be done. So what have you got? 6, 7 positions that come before a wing back? It would take something extraordinary in terms of our deal making to actually buy another one.
The simple fix, Ed, is right in front of our eyes. Sell Bruno to Saudi for 200 million.
Yeah, that's right.
And then every position can get strengthened. I'm obviously joking. There's no way United should do that or will do that. But it just shows a couple of sales, even if it's not Bruno, a couple of sales of players for decent prices. Not that United have never done this, but probably ever will. But it would just change things, and it would make them so much more flexible in the market. And you could go out and get, the dream player in probably 4 or 5 positions. It probably isn't going to happen because no one wants to buy our players because they're all terrible. But in a dream world,
and this is the challenge of trying to unwind our current PSR position and where we are in the league. No one's going to spend a lot of money on players that are in a team that finishes 15th in the league because that signals to everyone that they're a bit crap. Even worse than that, we've discarded some of them and they're out on loan. So we have effectively toxic assets, whether and I mean this in a generous sense, in Sancho and Marcus Rashford. They're players that the manager doesn't want, the club doesn't want, and that we need to move them on. Everybody knows that, and so we're not exactly in a great negotiating position on either of those, should Chelsea not take up the option. or pay us to not take up the option, and should Aston Villa not, which I'd say right now is extremely borderline, given that they almost certainly have to sell to make UEFA PSR. Not the Premier League, but UEFA.
Yeah, I don't think Anthony, Sancho or Rashford, none of them are going to end up at the club they're currently at on a permanent. I would say, if I was a betting man, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I would make that assumption too, which just adds to the complexity in the summer. And given we're talking about,
it should be 100 million for the three of them. Really, you should be cashing in on those three. But
should do, but you got a problem, right? Because Sancho has had effectively a failed loan at Chelsea, right? I don't think anyone would claim he's been a massive success. And he had a failed and moderately successful loan at Borussia Dortmund the year before, but generally been a total failure at United. We only need about just over 20 million to cover our PSR base, right? So for a player of his supposed talents, that should be really easy, but big wage, 3 years of not great performances makes it difficult. Marcus Rashford, huge wage is the one that's a problem. Obviously, no PSR number we have to meet there, so anything is profitable, both in terms of removing his wages and the sale price. But if Villa don't take it up, that might drive down the price. And then Anthony has been a success, I think. I mean, I don't think what I've seen of him at Betis, he's doing anything radically different, but he is playing in a league that is a bit slower, and I would suggest suits his skills a little bit more. And it's been good at Betis, but they can't afford 30-odd million. Unless they have a stupendously good end to the season, they definitely end up in the Europe. They could well end up in the European place, but Europa or Champions League rather than
win the
Conference League,
couldn't they? Yeah, so.
They could do, yeah, which would get them a spot in the Europa League as well. Much to Arsene Wenger's anger.
Oh, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that. No one cared until it was United, did they? No one cared until it was United.
Nobody cared for the last 10 years. Nobody cared at all. So, but, I mean, you're right in terms of like where we are in terms of our budget. So you could say, I mean, United guided 140, 150 EBITDA, call that free cash flow. 90 million of that disappears out the window straight away to what Sir Jim called historic transfers, just what we owe on other transfers. So then call that 80 to 90 million in cash that we can go spend plus whatever we sell. And there aren't loads. And in fact, from a PSR standpoint, if we sell Anthony at below 32 million and Sancho at below, let's call it 22, then we actually have to deduct that from our ability to spend. Yeah.
That would be really, really infuriating. There is a part of me, and maybe this is false hope, and it's the hope of a summer, a fresh start and the end of a terrible sort of really despondent season. But I just feel like United will be smarter this summer with their recruitment. I think, Jason Wilcox and Christian Pavel, I don't know, I just feel like I have a bit more faith in them than previous regimes. We've gone from a situation where Ed Woodward and Matt Judge, who were running our transfer operations, neither of whom had a football qualification or kicked a ball between them, to this guy, Jason Wilcox, who's, from all accounts, knows his stuff and has been there and done it, and Pavel, who's been hired literally to perform that role, right? So with the guidance of Amarin, or with Amarin's at least say-so on signings, we don't want to sign, like we say, people who just play for Amarin, but it just seems like a better setup. United can't keep failing in summers. So I just think this one might be successful for that reason.
I think so. I think they'll get the right profile of players. Now, the secondary question after that is, like, how raw are they? So how much of a gamble are some of these players given the financial positions that we're in? And, like, how many of them are we prepared to go a little over the top four in order to convince them to play? Now, obviously, if we win the Europa League and we're in the Champions League, that's an attractive position to be in. I mean, I did note that Barada said recently that, it was Amarim who said, we want to attract players who want to come to Manchester United. It shouldn't be for whatever short-term competition we're in. Yeah, fine, but all the top players around Europe want to be in the Champions League. That's what showcases their talents. They also get a nice little bonus at United because of the revenue. So that should help. It helps on the revenue side. A fair whack, right? I have seen this argument that well, there's a deduction in wages if we're in the Europa, so what difference does it make? The gap between the winners of the Europa and just the group stage participants at the Champions League is about 30 million, right? It's just a group stage. And you have to be massively shit not to make it into the top 24, right? So, and you had to have lost 4 or 5 games not to make it.
We'll find a way, Ed. We will find a way.
Yeah, well, yeah. It is modern day Wilderness Years United after all. But that's 10 games at 5 at home at £5 to £6 million, probably more next season, increased tickets and all the pool money and the media rights money and the participation money and the prize money if we do okay, right? So the gap is huge. It's basically £100 million check. You can make the assumption versus going all the way in Europa, and we've seen what a slog this competition is, and you make 40 million or something like that, right? So it's an extra player or two. But, the point, are they going to get it right in the transfer market? I think they're set up well to do it. Do they have to pay a little too much? I mean, I think Cunha at 62 million, I like him as a player, but in terms of his output, it's a little high. It's a little high.
12 million too high. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. And
the other question we've not, sorry to cut in, the other question we've not addressed is, will the system ever change? I guess I bring it back to Wingbacks and to signings that will be made and Amarin's dogma, 3-4-3 dogma. Will that system ever change? The question is probably no, but I'll ask you a slightly different question is, how many really good teams around Europe are playing it? And how many Premier League winners have ever played it? One. And Conte's Chelsea. Who are horrible to watch, but I know United play in a different way.
Yeah.
But is that a worry for bringing it back to Wingbacks in the system? Is that a worry? Like, I know United fans who just hate 3-4-3 and who want Amarin to either move away from it or for United to get someone in that won't play it.
Yeah, I'm definitely not there. I don't think it matters that much. He talks about principles. He's a positional systems coach, right? So it's what you do in what part of the pitch. That's why he likes multifunctional players that understand you're in zone 14. What's expected you at this point? He doesn't go as far as Guardiola, which is, if you don't pass it to the right when you should have passed it to the left, then you're out of the team sort of thing. And it's completely prescripted. Or Benitez, who is like, you stand 3.217 meters away from the guy who's taking the throw in when in zone 2, right? I mean, it's like players hate that stuff. It just grinds them down. So I don't think Amarim's that kind of coach. And we've already seen his flexibility. He's changed Casemiro's position and got a song out of him by changing his role and position in the team. He's played around with obviously Bruno's role, but also those in the front three. Garnacho is a regular in the side, despite every single week someone telling me that he doesn't fit the system. He doesn't fit the system. Why do you just start 50 games in a row? Like, basically.
And not 50, even coming off now and playing.
No, exactly. So I think, and we saw this at Sporting. So there is a basic shape, but there are principles within that shape. And then he's trying to find the right balance and combinations between players. And I would look at the left and right-sided centre-backs, the left and right wing-backs, and the left and right 10s to be making the connections. Now, the one thing I guess causes me a little pause for thought is how little United build up through the middle. This is shown in the data as well. We are heavily, heavily skewed towards wide areas, which means we're going to face a whole bunch of teams that put 4 very narrow across the box and try and defend like that. Can we beat those teams, or are we losing to them 1-0 at Old Trafford again next season? I'd be looking to that with Amarim rather than going, 3-4-3 doesn't work because it has to be 4-2-3-1, or, if we're playing 3-5-2, very different system, but 3 at the back, obviously. I'm not so worried about that, but can he find solutions within that? And I would actually argue he's less dogmatic than Erik ten Hag in that. Like, he is prepared to be flexible, whereas Ten Hag got himself in such an unbelievable muddle about what he was doing. You have to play this way, except I haven't got the players to do it, so I'm going to completely change it. And it was a complete mess.
You can't have it both ways, can you? I'll be devil's advocate to an extent, because I do believe for now in Amarin and the system. And Yeah, I want to see it given lots of time. I want to see, even if United are mid-table midway through next year, given time. That's the extent that it should be backed and the club's project should be backed. So, yeah, we don't want to see Ten Hag's lurching from playing one way to changing after 2 games. We can't see that again. We can't start that cycle again. It's too exhausting for the supporters and for it's too exhausted for the club. We're on this path now with Amorim, and it involves Wingbacks. So let's go all in.
If you were to guess who's going to be how many games are each of them going to play next season? I think Dorgu. Let's say we have a 50-something game season. Yeah. Dorgu's going to play at least 30. Harry Amas will get 15. Mazraoui will play a lot if he's not injured. He's played 50 odd, but it'll be in different positions. So away at Anfield, he'll play on the right. At home to who are one of the crap teams coming up, Leeds United. When they're in the bottom 3 halfway through the season, they got 6 points. Hopefully, touch wood.
I think they'll all play quite a bit. I think that, especially if United are in European competition, big if. But
yeah,
the interesting thing is if they're not in European competition and they're actually a big precious few games for some of these players. Will Harry Amas have to go out and load if that happens? What happens with Dorgu and Shaw? How does he split that game time up? You've got Aiden Heaven to squeeze in at left centre back. You've got maybe Fredrickson potentially out and loan or squeeze in. So there's loads of sort of moving parts with it. It's funny that United are going to be either Champions League or bust. There's not even going to be Europa League nonsense to give people game time. So it's going to be all important games, either 50 odd of them or 38 of them. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I do think the question around the youngsters and what happens with them really does hinge on having European football. And the good thing about some of them coming in and doing well is that if we decide, and as a club we haven't done very well at this, but if we decide that they're not going to make it at United and we'd rather move them on, instead of holding on to them for 4 years, we can sell them for a decent fee, which is of course what Chelsea and City have done extremely well over the years, and to the extent that it's completely bolstered their first team transfer strategy. I'm not suggesting we go sell Fredrickson tomorrow, but if we wanted to, I think his 2-3 performances in the first team have already shown that he's a player who's going to have a good career.
Yeah. And he went to our school, Tyler Fredrickson. So big up to
very good.
Points in high massive, even though it was probably 15 years after I left. Never mind that.
When he's lifting the Champions League trophy in 2029,
that's when I'll cash in. All those pieces will get written. I can guarantee you that.
The tell-all piece. All right. Well, I guess we'll leave it there. Thank you, Dominic. You're in your cricket outfit. Are you off to score your latest 100?
I haven't played yet this season due to having a baby, but we'll get out there at some point. The sun is shining in Manchester at the moment, so yeah, we'll get out there.
Well, the thing about the babies is they can't play the short stuff. They're just
he struggles against the quicker ball at the moment. He's just about holding on to a ball, so small steps.
Spoiled, literally. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. If you're listening, you can catch us on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, you can catch us on the apps. You probably know that by now. We're at patreon.com/NQAT pod if you want to get the extra show and back us. We'll catch you next time.